A Senate confirmation hearing just exploded into one of the most confrontational exchanges of the Trump administration. Senator Cory Booker spent nearly 10 minutes systematically dismantling Jeremy Carl, Trump's nominee for Assistant Secretary of State for International Organizations, over a documented history of racist, anti-Semitic, and inflammatory statements. This wasn't a policy disagreement. This was a moral reckoning. Booker confronted Carl with his own words, comments about Jews getting over the Holocaust, claims that January 6th rioters were treated worse than victims of Jim Crow, promotion of the Great Replacement conspiracy theory, and statements suggesting America's strength depends on maintaining white demographic majorities. And Carl, he couldn't answer basic questions, couldn't explain his beliefs without contradicting himself, couldn't defend statements he'd made publicly for years. We're going to break this down in 4 parts. First, Carl's inability to answer whether racial makeup matters in America. Second, his Great Replacement theory beliefs and what CNN uncovered about his deleted posts. Third, Booker's devastating monologue connecting Carl's statements to a racial hierarchy. And fourth, the bipartisan opposition that now threatens to sink this nomination. If confirmed, Carl would oversee over 100 American diplomats and work directly with UN agencies on human rights and global development. Watch what happens when a senator asks if he's qualified.
You think one race is superior than another race on the planet Earth?
Senator, absolutely not.
You don't. So do you think that America would be weaker if it was, say, 40% Jewish?
Senator, absolutely not in and of itself. I think the problem...
Well, why did you qualify that?
No,
What do you
Senator,
mean
if you
in
let
and
me
of itself?
finish, I do not. I believe that unity, as President Trump has said, rather than diversity, is a greater strength.
But why not simply say it doesn't matter what percentage of our population is Jewish?
Senator, it certainly doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Senator, if I could finish, as somebody of Jewish origin myself, and I do want to take this moment to say, because there have been some comments made, one of my weaknesses, and we've discussed some that you may think in general are weaknesses, is sometimes I take an idea too far. And I made some comments in interviews about minimizing the effect of the Holocaust that were absolutely wrong. And I'm not going to sit here and defend them here. I just want to be very, very clear on that point. Again, had I been in Germany in that time, even though I'm a 6th-generation American, but had I not, I would have been killed just like anybody else.
I've heard you say that you regret some of your comments about Jews.
Absolutely.
Do you regret any other comments about any other races?
Senator, you would have to reference a certain comment, but I'm certainly not a perfect person, and I'm sure that I've
Do
made...
you regret any of your comments about Latino Americans?
Senator, I'm sure that if you read me every single comment I'd made about a group, there would be some that, upon consideration...
So you stipulate for this body that you have in your past made comments about Jews and Latinos and perhaps blacks that you perhaps regret.
Senator, thank you for the question. As a Calvinist who believes that we're all infinitely sinful and only redeemed through grace...
See, we're sending you into a very diverse world.
Yeah.
And you can't say unequivocally that America, it doesn't matter what our racial makeup is. You believe it matters what the racial makeup of America is.
Senator...
Do you believe it matters, yes or no, what the racial makeup of America is?
Senator, to echo President Trump, I believe
I don't want
unity
you to
rather
echo
than diversity...
President Trump. I want you to answer my question, yes or no. Does it matter what the racial makeup of America is?
Senator, I'll stand on my comment. Thank you.
What's your comment? Answer the question, yes or no.
Echoing President Trump, I believe unity rather than diversity is a strength.
So you have a problem if America grew to be more Latinos than white people?
Senator, the individual group is not important.
Stop there, because what you just watched is a master class in evasion under oath. Booker asked a simple yes or no question. Does it matter what America's racial makeup is? Carl couldn't answer it. He deflected, quoted Trump, invoked Calvinism, but he never said no. And notice the pattern. When asked if America would be weaker with 40% Jewish population, Carl said, absolutely not in of itself. That's a qualifier. It suggests there's a condition under which it might matter. Carl admitted he made comments minimizing the fact of the Holocaust that were absolutely wrong. But when asked if he regrets comments about Latinos or Black Americans, he couldn't give a straight answer. He said if you read him every single comment, there would be some he might reconsider. That's not an apology. That's admitting there's so much problematic content, you can't even identify specific examples. And then he invokes Trump's line about unity rather than diversity. That's become a talking point on the right, a way to criticize diversity initiatives without saying explicitly that racial diversity is bad. But Booker isn't letting him hide behind vague language. Now let's talk about what Carl actually wrote, because CNN did the work. According to CNN's KFile investigation from September 2025, Carl deleted thousands of social media posts before his nomination. Many demonstrated a history of inflammatory commentary. CNN documented incendiary posts about race, claims that peaceful coexistence with Democrats is impossible, and even a call for a political opponent to face the death penalty. TheGrio's reporting notes that Carl is the author of a book titled The Unprotected Class: How Anti-White Racism is Tearing America Apart. His record includes suggesting that January 6th, rioters were treated worse than Black people during Jim Crow, and arguing that the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was used as an anti-white weapon. Salon interviewed Desiree Cormier Smith, former U.S. Special Representative for Racial Equity and Justice at the State Department. She stated, "Someone with racist and anti-Semitic views cannot credibly promote global equality, nor can he credibly engage with the rest of the world as equals." So we're not talking about a few poorly worded tweets. CNN found thousands of deleted posts. Carl wrote an entire book arguing white Americans are victims of racism. He compared people convicted of attacking the Capitol to victims of lynching and Jim Crow era violence. That last point is particularly revealing. Watch what Booker says about it.
What do you mean when you say that you believe in the Great Replacement theory?
Senator, thank you for that question. This refers to the intentional demographic replacement of Europeans in Europe. It was invented by Renaud Camus, who was a French scholar.
You think there's an active effort to, quote unquote, replace Americans right now?
Senator, I think the Democratic Party, through its immigration policies, has certainly shown signs of that.
And I don't understand that. So you are saying that if more Americans are Black or Latino Americans, that somehow weakens America because it puts whites in a minority.
Senator, I never said anything like that, nor do I actually believe that. I want to be very clear that regardless of country, if people generally share more in common, that's a strength.
Can I read you what you've said? Because it sounds like this. You said the Great Replacement is real, and they are going to try to make you pay for it. Who is they?
Senator, thank you for that question. I simply don't know from you reading that one isolated comment.
Carl just admitted on the record that he believes in the Great Replacement theory, a white nationalist conspiracy that claims there's a deliberate effort to replace white populations through immigration. And he's accusing the Democratic Party of carrying it out. This theory has been cited by multiple mass shooters in El Paso, Christchurch, and Buffalo, and is widely recognized as a racialized extremist narrative, not a neutral demographic argument. Carl didn't mention it once in passing. He wrote about it publicly and repeatedly for years. The Advocate interviewed Jessica Stern, former U.S. Special Envoy to advance the human rights of LGBTQI plus persons. Stern warned that Carl is violently anti-trans and has said there are no transgender kids. She stated, at the global scale, What this means is he would be leading the U.S. government to strip the multilateral system of protections from transgender people and potentially actively target them. So this isn't just about past comments. This is about what Carl would actually do in the position he's nominated for. He would oversee U.S. engagement with UN human rights agencies. And former officials who held similar roles are warning that he would use that position to roll back protections for marginalized groups globally. Now watch Booker bring it all together.
You make the most incendiary comments that you admit that you regret about Jews, about Latinos, about blacks. And you sit here and say that you do not have a worldview, that somehow our country is weakened based upon the populations of each. In fact, you say in your writings that it is a threat to the United States of America and create an us versus them. And the only interpretation I can have of us versus them is it's white people against others, which sounds deeply racist to me, that somehow you think our country's greatness depends upon its ethnic diversity as long as white people have more numbers than others. That does not sound like a nation that was founded with the belief that all people are created equal and equal before the eyes of God. It sounds like you have a racial hierarchy. There's no way for me to read this in any other way.
Senator,
because you have said our country, based upon religious diversity, based upon ethnic diversity, based upon racial diversity, you have indicated that somehow those make America weaker or stronger, that God forbid our nation grows in population, that then you suddenly say, I'm aggrieved, and they are trying to replace us. This is the United States of America. We are one nation under God, but you cut us up and divide us along racial lines.
Sir, respectfully, I do not think that they do.
You cannot use the word respectfully, because you do not respect me.
Oh,
you
no,
look
actually, I
upon
do.
me as my color of my skin. You say holidays like Juneteenth are racial hustles. Don't come here and hustle me.
Booker delivered one of the strongest Senate statements in years, arguing that Carl frames demographic change as a threat while denying belief in racial hierarchy. He accused him of promoting great replacement ideas, redefining unity as white majority rule, and retreating to partial regrets without rejecting the core ideology. Booker also cited Carl calling Juneteenth a racial hustle and tied that rhetoric to the broader political climate surrounding January 6th.
I watched people beat others when they attacked the Capitol, viciously attack police officers. Brian Sicknick, a New Jersey resident, was beaten near death and would die days later. And you say those violent felons, you literally have said that they were treated worse than people during Jim Crow. When thousands of Americans were lynched, murdered, beaten, and killed, you equate Capitol Hill rioters with receiving worse treatment than Americans during Jim Crow, which even some of the worst people who participated in that violence and beatings have come forward decades later and said, I was wrong. It is shameful that when this body ran for its life, when they had gallows for the vice president put outside, when they tried to stop the peaceful transfer of power, that you would equate those people to the folks that were victimized and terrorized by white nationalist organizations like the KKK. Sir, you have no decency. You have no honor. You say inflammatory things because it thinks it will ingratiate you to those who are paying your salary. And you sit here before me and try to wrap yourself in the American flag? Well, I believe in this nation. I believe in the principles. I believe in those who fought and died for our country. You disgrace that legacy and the ideals that we all swear an oath to uphold.
Carl compared January 6th defendants to victims of Jim Crow, a period of state-sanctioned racial terror marked by lynchings, violence, and systemic oppression. Critics say that's not political debate, but historical erasure. Opposition to his nomination is bipartisan. Senator John Curtis has said he won't support him, and if Democrats remain unified, the nomination likely fails. Civil rights leaders and Senate figures argue that someone with this record cannot credibly represent America on human rights abroad. If you found this breakdown valuable, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. We follow the facts, track the hearings, and stay on top of the most important political developments so you don't miss what really matters. See you in the next one.